Today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of how Apple is building out a massive manufacturing network in India. And what's really amazing is just how fast it's all happening. It's a move that's shaking up the entire global tech landscape. So take a look at this iPhone. For years and years, the answer to where was this made was pretty much a given: China. But that whole story is changing, and honestly, it's changing way faster than anyone really expected. So what are the chances that the phone you're looking at right now actually came from an assembly line in India? Well, those chances are surprisingly high. Right now, about 1 out of every 5 iPhones sold anywhere in the world is made in India. Just think about that for a second. That's a massive number, and it points to one of the biggest shifts in tech manufacturing we've seen in a decade. So, how on earth did this happen so quickly? Well, it was no accident. This huge pivot to India is a very recent, very deliberate, and incredibly ambitious project that's literally redrawing supply chain maps. The real spark for all of this was a government program in India back in 2020 called the Production Linked Incentive Scheme. Basically, the government put out a deal. If companies produced more stuff locally, they'd get a bonus. And that was pretty much the starting gun that kicked off this manufacturing race. And wow, did that race lead to an explosion of growth. What started out as a pretty small experiment has now spun out into this huge, complex production web that stretches all across the country. The speed of this is what's really mind-blowing. Apple's journey in India started with just 2 iPhone factories. That's it. But in just a few short years, that little foothold has turned into a massive footprint. We're talking over 40 suppliers, including a ton of smaller businesses, spread out over 8 different states. And this isn't all just happening in one little corner of the country. This network is all over the place, from Maharashtra and Gujarat out in the west, all the way to Uttar Pradesh and Haryana up north. It's become a truly nationwide ecosystem. So who are these companies that are actually building this new web for Apple? It's not just about putting the final phone together. The whole ecosystem has grown into 3 really distinct layers. Okay, so the first tier, that's pretty straightforward. These are companies making parts for iPhones that are assembled in India. The second tier, though, that's where it gets even bigger. These are Indian companies making components for Apple's entire global supply chain. And then there's the third tier, the most advanced one. This is the real game changer. These are companies that are building the machines that build the machines, all the high-tech factory equipment and automation tools needed to make iPhones. That's a capability that used to be almost entirely based in China. And we're not talking about small, unknown companies here. We're talking about some of the biggest names in Indian industry. Giants like Tata Electronics, automation experts like Wipro Pari, and the metals company Hindalco. They're all now critical parts of Apple's supply chain, bringing all this deep domestic experience with them. Now, when you get this kind of industrial shift, it doesn't just mean more iPhones. It means a massive economic boom. And the numbers here are just, well, they're kind of hard to wrap your head around. Get this, between 2021 and 2025, Apple's partners in India are on track to produce iPhones worth a grand total of $45 billion. That's billion, with a B. It just shows how much production has scaled up in such a short time. But here's the really important part. A huge 76% of that production was exported. This is the proof that India isn't just making phones for its own people. It's become a vital global export hub for Apple's most important product. And the ripple effect from that is just immense. Driven almost entirely by this iPhone surge, smartphones have gone from being India's 167th biggest export back in 2014 to becoming its #1 export category today, the single largest. That's a complete transformation of the country's entire export economy. All right, so with all this incredible growth, how does India's manufacturing muscle actually compare to the established heavyweight in the ring, China? To really understand that, we've got to look at one key metric. And that metric is called value addition. It's a simple idea, really. It just measures how much of a product's final price tag is actually created inside a country, beyond just snapping the final pieces together. The higher the value addition, the more sophisticated and capable your manufacturing ecosystem is. So let's look at where things stand. In just 4 years, India has hit 18% value addition, and it's aiming for 35% by 2026. Now, China is still ahead at 40%, no doubt. But here's the real kicker. It took China over 2 decades to get to that level.
India is trying to close that same gap in a fraction of the time. The speed is just on another level.
Which brings us right back to that phone in your hand. We've seen the speed, the scale, and the sheer ambition behind its journey. As Apple continues to spin this incredibly complex production web all across India, the big question is, are we witnessing the rise of the world's next great factory right before our very eyes?